Today's podcast is brought to you by StrongHeartAcademy.com, where no heart is no victory. We are also brought to you by BJJ To Go. If you want to build your game and learn jiu-jitsu, go to bjjtogo.com. Third thing we're brought to you by is Rat Bat. You got rats? Want to kill bats? Kill them with a rat bat. Fourth thing we're brought to you by is hot dog flavored water ingredients. If you want to add it to your smoothie, hot dog flavor ingredient. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about Dan Gable and his career and just some things. I saw a podcast recently about him, and it just brought up memories of Dan Gable and how incredible this human being is. And there's just very few humans like that in any sport. But he was like the top of the food chain. And then he became a top of the food chain coach on top of that. So I think this was a Lex Fridman podcast, and it was awesome. I like Lex Fridman. I think he has a good interview style. Even his black suit's kind of like non-distracting from the actual questions, I believe. It's like very stark compared to like if he was wearing something loud or like it could just be distracting. It's just the conversation, and he asks very good questions. He's a very good interviewer, and I was really impressed with the interview. Dan Gable's, again, a huge hero of mine growing up when I wrestled, and I never got to see a lot of interviews with him because YouTube wasn't around back then. That's how old I am. So just a quick thing here. If you look at his record, he didn't lose in high school, and then in college, he was 117 wins, 1 loss. Now, he was going to be like the only person, I think, in the history at the time that was going to go undefeated. This is his last match of his career. He lost his last match of his career. And he kind of talked about how this guy, his last match was against Larry Owings of the University of Washington. But then after that, he goes and he wins a world title. And his team, and then he becomes a Olympic gold medalist. He beats a bunch of Russians. At the time, Russia was just killing us in the 70s and even after. Even today, they're some of the best wrestlers there are, period. They have way more titles than we do in the United States. And he says they're more scientific and they're more have an art to the wrestling versus us. We're a little tougher. And it was a very interesting interview about that, and just saying how, he thinks that more art, more science in wrestling versus the toughness, and then combining the two would make a really good wrestler. And I thought that was a really interesting way of thinking about it. When he went to the Olympics, nobody scored a point on him. Now, that kind of reminds me of Khabib, where he never lost a round, technically. Not only did he not lose, he went, undefeated record, which is impressive, super impressive. But, Khabib never got a broken nose. His face was never beat up. He barely got hit, and never lost a round. And in wrestling, so many matches are 1-2-0, 2-4, 1-0, to never got taken down. You've never been taken down in the Olympics. That's crazy impressive. And against a bunch of Russians who were amazing, amazing wrestlers. Then he goes on to compete, and he becomes a coach, and his teams compiled a dual meet record of 355 wins, 21, I'm guessing those are ties, 21-5, which is just crazy. He coached 152 All-Americans, 45 national champions. He had 106 Big Ten champions and 12 Olympians, 8 medalists. His teams won 21 Big Conference championships and 17 NCAA National One titles. He coached freestyle wrestling. Gable was the head coach of 3 Olympic teams and 6 world teams. Like, the dude is just extremely impressive, and he's kind of broken now. I remember seeing interviews later, like he's had his hips replaced, his knees replaced. He was just an animal. Like, he would get them fixed, and then he would immediately go train. Like, he never took time off. Like, now, you're out for 8 months, 10 months, 9 months, and they can get knees. It's incredible what they can do with medicine now. But back then, they just tore your whole knee out. They would have these giant scars, and hip transplants are insane. Now they're like, they say you're walking within the day or whatever. Back then, it's not the case. Like, he was just cut above. And one of the things that during the interview with Lex Fridman is they talk about, do you get over losses? And he's like, no, not pretty much no. Like, he's like, that one loss, he still thinks about it. He's an old man. He's still thinking about this loss that happened in the 70s. He's won so much. That other guy never even won a world championship or a world title, and he beat him. And he has a gold medal. That's the top of you can get in wrestling, a gold medal in the Olympics. And he still thinks about that one loss. He was talking about in practices, if someone scored a point in practice, all night long he would think about it to fix what happened, what went wrong, what did he do wrong. And so it's just a different mentality when you're that type of champion, that type of, if you watch The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, it's a very similar thing. You just listen to this guy, like, he would make up stories to beat people, things that didn't even exist. And Dan Gable, it was funny to just listen to him talk about it. And then the second thing that I thought was really eye-opening was when he said, did fear ever cross your mind, and did you ever think you were going to lose? And he was like, no, I knew I was going to win. And that's just having no doubt is I don't know many people. I don't think I've ever met anyone that didn't have a doubt, that didn't think it was possible to lose, And he didn't talk about it as in a cocky sense. Just he saw it happen, envisioned it happen, did the work, and he just didn't see. He knew all the angles. He knew everything that could go wrong, and he prepared so well prepared that it was not in his mind that it could happen. And fear, he said, I'm sure it was in the mind of my opponents. And that was like a really aha moment for me of like, oh, okay, so you're saying fear is real, but just not for you, And it's his preparation that he believes that helps him. And he said when he started coaching, the first thing that people get afraid of, and I know me personally is the same thing, is cardio, being tired. The worst thing that can happen in a grappling match is being tired. It's super hard to stall in grappling. In striking, you can do things to mitigate movements, to not engage and to get your cardio. But even then you get tired because you're moving around. But, if you get hit hard, you can run. Grappling, you're engaged. You can't unengage. You get penalized for unengaging. So he said the first thing he does is to remove the ever being tired. We will never be tired. None of my competitors will ever be tired in a match. And I do know the times that I've competed, and I was such tip-top condition for myself personally, that part of the fear goes out of my mind. Like, what if I'm in, for jiu-jitsu, what if I'm in like mount and I have no gas and I'm going to feel like I'm going to puke, I don't get that. If I'm in shape, what if I'm in mount? It's just more about, okay, how do I get out of mount? You're thinking about less things to worry and think about. If it's just, if cardio is not an issue, so I've always, even for my guys, when Ronnie was fighting, I'm like, dude, you have to do 10 miles a week running, so that cardio is never an issue. We don't get tired. They get tired. And again, that's like, they're afraid. We're not afraid. We don't get afraid because we're prepared. And that was the biggest thing for me, is like, his mental fortitude for sure. And I've always known that, and his toughness. And he was talking about not letting wrestlers ever drink water. But then he's like, Now he thinks that's a bad idea because, like, scientifically you need water. But just still being disciplined and hard, but like being smarter about his training. But the preparation. And I read his book, Season on the Mat, and some of the things I really liked in there, like he wanted guys to do gym workouts on the side, but he allowed them to choose when with their own circadian rhythms and their, like if you like to work out in the morning, cool. Like working out at night, cool. As long as you get it done. He didn't set the time like, oh, we're all going to meet here to lift. Like he allowed them, as long as they had self-discipline to show up and get the work done. They did it themselves. So, anyway, it was really interesting interview. I really highly recommend for my students to check out the Lex Fridman Podcast with Dan Gable. And just looking up Dan Gable can get you fired up, get you motivated to be better than you are, because that dude is he's a higher specimen human. And those type of people fascinate me because I've never considered myself one of them, but I think there's lessons to learn from those people. And, anything I can learn from humanity and doing things that I don't do, that they do better, I'm always about it. And I recommend that for other people too. So anyway, peace.
Let me talk for just a second, help me feel that sense of rhythm. Find the meanings in our bearings and discover this position as a stage along the way. Another rung to the ladder, either stalling or you're climbing, and I'd rather beat the ladder. Instead of getting fatter, let the footsteps resume naturally.